After the First World War, several independence missions were sent to the US during the 1900s, starting on the year 1918 and towards the 1920s. However, these missions failed primarily because, according to Agoncillo, these missions were opposed by Philippine-based American firms. Now, I think I have discussed the role of interest groups in making in the lawmaking processes, now particularly the pharmaceutical companies. So the same dynamics happened before with the independence missions. Now, in 1931, another effort was made through the leadership of Sergio Osmeña and Manuel Rojas to push for early independence. This resulted in the passing of the Hare-Hawes-Cutting Act, which would grant independence to the Philippines after 10 years. This law was actually originally voted by then US President Hoover, but the US Congress overturned his veto. However, this law did not sit well with Quezon, who was the one who recommended the sending of the independence mission. Now, why? The reasons are found on your screen. I got this from Agoncillo's book. So this is verbatim from the book. So let's go over the reasons why Quezon disagreed with the Hare-Hawes Cutting Act. First, the provisions on trade relations did not ensure economic security for the Philippines after independence. So Quezon questioned the unequal, trade relationship between the U.S. and the Philippines because when the U.S. would export goods to the Philippines, there were no quotas, there were no limitations. However, when it comes to Philippine products like abaca, for example, the US imposed quotas. Second, the immigration quota was offensive and one-sided because for a period of 10 years, only 50 immigrants were allowed to enter the US every year. Third, the powers of the American High Commissioner were too indefinite. So uh, there was really no specification of the power of the High Commissioner. By the way, the High Commissioner or the American High Commissioner was the representative of the U.S. President. And then fourth, the retention of military, naval, and other reservations was inconsistent with true independence that violate national dignity or sovereignty. Why? It is because after uh, the even after the granting of independence, the U.S. would still have military and other reservations. No? So, ibig sabihin nito, meron pa rin silang kinokontrol na land. Of course, if you are familiar, I'm sure that you are familiar with it, no? Um, Even after the granting of independence noong 1946, meron pa rin mga military bases na natira dito sa Pilipinas. So, Quezon went to the US and worked with several lawmakers, and he was successful in having the Tidings-McDuffie law enacted. This time, it was signed by a different president, and the president was Franklin D. Roosevelt. Now, what is quite ironic is that the Tidings-McDuffie law is actually very similar with the Hare-Hawes Cutting Act. There's only one difference. That is, instead of this phrase, no, the retention of military and other reservations, it was changed to the retention of naval reservations and fueling stations. Now, Agoncillo is saying that this difference is a significant one because it removed, no, the military bases here in the Philippines. However, Agoncillo also discussed that it's not just Agoncillo, of course. Other historians also have the same opinion that the real reason why Quezon went to the U.S. was that he didn't not want to be overshadowed by Rojas and Osmeña. From his point of view, if the Hair Horse Cutting Act would be fully implemented, he would be overshadowed by Osmeña, especially if Osmeña will run for the presidency after the granting of independence. So as you can see, even at present kasi importante din yung authorship ng mga batas. Remember when it comes to, and perhaps you have already started noticing this, no, because election time is near. When politicians campaign, they would list down the laws, no, even in the local level, no, they would state the laws that or ordinances that they have authored. In compliance with the Tidings-McDuffie law, a constitutional convention was started on July 30 of 1934. However, according to Agoncillo, the aspirations of the Filipinos were not fully reflected as Americans and Filipinos were given the same civil rights. Foreign affairs and the Philippine currency control were granted to the U.S. No, prior to their exit in the Philippines. Now, on May 14 of 1935, Filipinos approved the 1935 Constitution through a plebiscite. So essentially, a plebiscite is like voting, but the choices that you have is yes or no. Like, I approve of it or I disapprove of it. As such, the Commonwealth of the Philippines was inaugurated. One notable provision of the 1935 Constitution was the guarantee of women's suffrage, or giving voting rights to women. It should be noted, though, that it was only on September 15, 1937, that the law guaranteeing women's suffrage was enacted, as the Commonwealth government needed to be established first. Male suffrage was already guaranteed, though, for males who were 24 years old and above in the 1935 Constitution. Now, as to the structure of the government, a unicameral legislation was established. This was later amended to bicameral. Now, for the executive branch of the government, the system of voting was the same as the US, as the president and vice president were voted together. So, pair siya. Now, 4 years were given for each term and re-election was not allowed. An amendment changed this and resulted in the possibility for re-election, pero minsan lang. Now, for the judiciary, the Supreme Court was composed of one Chief Justice and 10 Associate Justices. They were chosen by the President, and it needed the approval of the Commission on Appointments. The presence of the Commission on Appointments serves as checks, no, and balances, as the Commission on Appointments check whether or not the appointee is deserving of the position. Now, other amendments were introduced later. First, with the establishment, no, of a separate commission on elections and the parity amendment. So what is the parity amendment? This gave American citizens equal rights uh, together with Filipinos, no? So meron silang equal rights para i-exploit ang natural resources natin and be engaged in businesses that are considered as public utilities. Let us now go to the 1943 Constitution. So the promulgation of the 1943 Constitution was a result of the Japanese occupation of the Philippines during the Second World War. Right after our country was occupied, the military administration was established as well as the Kalibapi or the Kapisanan ng Paglilingkod sa Bagong Pilipinas. The Kalibapi was designated as the exclusive political organization of the Philippines. It was the Kalibapi through the Preparatory Committee on Philippine Independence which drafted the 1943 Constitution after the Japanese Premier Hideki Toho promised our independence. Jose P. Laurel was then elected by the National Assembly whose members were voted by the Kalibapi. Now, an important event that happened during his presidency was his proclamation of martial law and his subsequent proclamation of a state of war with the Allied powers. So, if you remember, the Japanese belonged to the Axis powers. However, this was not approved by the National Assembly. The Second Republic was dissolved 2 days after the surrender of the Japanese to the Allied forces. This was on August 17, 1945. Quezon, who died in New York on August 1, 1944, was succeeded by Vice President Sergio Osmeña. So, the 1943 Constitution established three branches of the government with the president belonging to the executive branch. The president had the power to appoint ministers and vice ministers. With the advice of his cabinet, the president appointed ambassadors down to the provincial governors and city and municipal levels. So, as you can see, even for the officials of the local government level, the president, had control over it. But of course, it should be noted that the presidency of Jose P. Laurel is deemed as, a presidency which, or a government, which is considered as a puppet government. Okay, so the National Assembly, on the other hand, comprised the legislature and the members of the Supreme Court were appointed by the president with the advice of the cabinet. So, with the end of the Second World War and the granting of Philippine independence on June 12, 1946, the 1935 Constitution was reinstated.